Good morning. I am Carroll Hollingsworth, President of the Radio Club of America. Welcome to the first virtual RCA breakfast at IWCE. I am pleased to be joined by two distinguished members of the Radio Club of America. First, I would like to introduce Chief Harlin McEwen. Chief McEwen has distinguished himself as a leader in wireless communications in the public safety community. Harlin is a past director of the Radio Club, a fellow, life member. He is a former FirstNet PSAC chair, the recipient of the IACP Lone Star Distinguished Award. He's a life member and honorary president of the International Chiefs of Police. He is also a life member of the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police, a life member of APCO, the National Sheriff's Association, and the first recipient of the RCA NIPSTIC Richard DeMello Award for his many contributions to public safety communications. Thank you, Chief McEwen. We appreciate your being with us this morning. The annual RCA breakfast at IWC has been a favorite networking event by our members for many years. Hopefully, we'll be able to return to a live event next year. We want to give you an update on some important RCA events. Recently, RCA sponsored its first in a series of virtual interviews, beginning with a very special guest, Dr. Ted Rappaport, hosted by President Emeritus Tim Duffy. The next virtual interview will be October 6th. The RCA Board of Directors will soon make a decision on having the awards banquet and technical symposium live or virtual. The planning committee is planning both events to be either virtual or live. This year's event is scheduled to be in Pittsburgh in celebration of 100 years of broadcasting in the United States by KDKA. Please check the RCA website for details and updates on these events. This year's technical symposium has an incredible lineup of speakers and presenters, thanks in large part to John Pasella and his committee of Dr. Jim Brakall and Dr. Chip Coyne. If you've not had an opportunity to make one of the technical symposiums each year when we have the awards banquet, I would encourage you to make the one this year. We always have an incredible lineup of wireless communications professionals that are there to present what's new, what's coming up, and the latest in technologies. I have been a member of the Radio Club of America for over 30 years. I have been an elected member of the board for 20 years. It has been a very rewarding professional and personal experience. The elections for the Radio Club officers and directors is currently underway. If you or someone that you know has an interest in becoming a member of the RCA Board of Directors, the application information is on the RCA website. I would encourage you to consider becoming a member of the board of the Radio Club of America. The Radio Club of America has three initiatives: honoring the past, ensuring the present, and creating the future in wireless communications. The RCA has always been closely aligned with its public safety partners and public safety organizations. The Radio Club is dedicated to the wireless art and science for the betterment of society. Chief McEwen, this statement is very similar in how you have dedicated your long distinguished career. With your many years of being a member, director, fellow, and life member of the Radio Club of America, would you please talk to us about your thoughts on the personal and professional benefits of being a member and board member of the Radio Club of America?
Sure. Thanks, Carol. Well, I first became an RCA member with the encouragement from Fred Link. Many longtime members of RCA knew Fred Link personally, although he's passed and we finally remember him. But he was an amazing man who brought innovation to the wireless industry and who recognized the best in people and encouraged them to excel in the wireless world. RCA is a mix of people. Number one, they come from the radio and television media field. Number two, they are technical people who have engineered our wireless radio and TV capabilities and systems. And number three, people who use radio for two-way communications in business and public safety. Although I am not an amateur or ham radio operator, many RCA members are also enthusiastic and active members of that community. RCA has an educational program led by our own Carol Perry that is absolutely wonderful and educates many young people in the various aspects of the wireless world. Over the years, I have met many wonderful wireless pioneers through the radio club. People like Walter Cronkite, Marty Cooper, Andy Rooney. There's too many to name, but many wonderful people that were based in the wireless world in various ways. As you can tell, I'm an enthusiastic member of the RCA, and I highly recommend membership to others who also have an interest in the wireless field.
Thank you, Harlan. You know, that is an excellent point that you have made about all the different people that you've met that you probably or may not have met had you not been a member of the Radio Club of America and had you not been to the different events that we have every year. I have met so many pioneers, actually, going back to Stu Myers and Fred Link like you, that it's having met those gentlemen and being able to visit with them and talk to them, and then come all the way up into the young pioneers today that we see from the young people that Carol Perry brings into her program. And now that IWCE has their young professional program, we kind of tie all of those together, from the young children that are in middle school and high school with Carol to the young professionals just getting started into the industry. And that I'm certain that some of those young people are going to be pioneers today and into the future in helping others get started. We really appreciate it. You know, Chief, the recent RCA interview series with Dr. Rappaport on the future of wireless communications was very enlightening. I hope that many of those who are attending this event had an opportunity to see that. It was recorded and it's available if anyone would like to see that when you have an opportunity. Chief, would you please share your vision of the future of wireless communications in public safety with us?
Sure, and thank you, Carol. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this morning's RCA first virtual breakfast. And I hope everyone is enjoying our usual breakfast time together, although we have to prepare our own breakfast rather than standing in line to get the commercially prepared breakfast at IWCE like we usually do. We laugh about that sometimes, but today we have to make our own breakfast. As I mentioned earlier, the RCA is made up of members representing different aspects of the wireless industry. In my case, it is focused on wireless two-way communications for public safety. Today, Carol asked me to share my vision of the future of wireless communications focused on public safety. I believe that to predict the future, it is often good to reflect on the past. In my lifetime, I have experienced tremendous technological changes in the wireless industry that helped me look cautiously at the future. I had an interest in public safety wireless communications starting in my teen years. I started with a crystal-controlled radio monitor that allowed me to listen to the local police and fire radio transmissions. I became a volunteer firefighter, and then that led to my interest in law enforcement, and I started my career as a police and fire radio dispatcher, and then became a police officer. In those days, public safety radio communications were based in what we call the low band, or 20 to 50 megahertz band. The signals traveled a long way, but were also subject to interference brought from what were called the sunspots, that caused us to receive radio transmissions from thousands of miles away and disrupted our normal urgent communications. I watched the first narrow banding from 50 megahertz channels down to 25 megahertz channels. In those days, when the radio didn't work, the radio technician would look and feel on the radio tubes in the trunk of our police car. And if one was cold, he would replace it, and that fixed the radio. Some of you will remember that, but there are many that don't. There were no handheld portables, only portable units with large and heavy batteries with long antennas and a telephone type handset. Since then, we have transitioned into high band systems in the 150 megahertz band, And now many public safety systems are in 700 and 800 megahertz land mobile systems. I've watched many developments over the years, including production of handheld portable land mobile radios that are now critical to public safety communications. The movement from analog systems to digital systems and the further narrowbanding of radio channels, making them mostly practical for only voice communications. I won't dwell on those days, but it's always good to remember the past. Today, we are focusing from land mobile radio more to cellular type communications for broadband, and the first nationwide public safety broadband network is being built as we speak. The FirstNet Authority, established by law in 2012, has issued a contract, a 25-year contract, to AT&T to build the nationwide network, and it is progressing at a rapid pace. There are more than 1.5 million users today and growing fast, and AT&T is rapidly building out the unique band 14 coverage for public safety, already reaching over 80% of the FirstNet goal. My vision of the future of public safety communications includes a number of things. First of all, we're looking at increasing interoperability between public safety land mobile radio systems and public safety radio systems. So we have companies like JPS and others that offer services to connect FirstNet or broadband technologies with their land mobile systems, which makes it very nice. So in particular, a lot of the executives of police, fire, and EMS systems are more and more using their smartphone, which is interconnected by JPS and others to their land mobile system, so they don't have to rely upon only their land mobile portable radio. Makes it very nice if you're in a business suit and you're carrying your smartphone and you want to be able to talk to people on your land mobile system, and it works quite well. There are many, many different kinds of things that are going on. I've been listening all week to the IWCE presentations. There's been a number of very interesting presentations. In order for me to stay contemporary, it's good for me to listen to what people are doing today, and I really learn a lot. One of the exciting developments is what we call high power user equipment, and that is limited by FCC rules to being used on the band 14 FirstNet system. So for instance, most smartphones transmit using about 200 milliwatts of power, but this new high power user equipment, HPUE, is allowed to transmit as much as 1.25 power, and which is significantly more than 200 milliwatts. And with that, what it does is it increases the ability to use, in some cases, limited coverage of these systems. This week, I listened to one of the panels talking about the developments. Right now, it's mostly focused on routers, which are, put in police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances, but eventually will evolve, I believe, into smartphones and handheld devices. Although there are challenges with that. I mean, when you increase the power for these devices, you bring other aspects that have to be considered. For instance, you need in some cases, a bigger battery. You may need a different antenna, and there may be some risks to the power and where you talk with that radio. In other words, whether you put it to your ear or whether you're using a Bluetooth device, which takes it away from your head and reduces the amount of possible danger to a human being. So these things are exciting new discussions that are being talked about that really excite me. The ongoing discussion about improving push-to-talk systems towards eventual mission-critical systems. Right now, there are, within FirstNet and other carriers, there are push-to-talk offerings, and people can use their broadband devices to do push-to-talk. My experience is, I have such devices. I have a FirstNet smartphone, and I regularly use push-to-talk with some of the people I work with in that environment. And the quality of the voice is actually much better than most current land mobile devices. So that's exciting. It's an improvement that's noticeable to me, and but there are still significant hurdles to get over to become what I call mission critical capable. So push to talk today in broadband is increasing at a fairly rapid pace, and it's a great supplement to land mobile, like I said, particularly if it's interconnected between the land mobile public safety systems and the broadband systems. But they still, there are some limited cases where they offer what they call pro se or what I call unit-to-unit capability. And I have always stressed the fact that broadband push-to-talk cannot be called mission critical until it has the same capabilities or more than land mobile push-to-talk capabilities today. And as an example, if you're not in range of a land mobile base station and you can't reach other people through a repeater, the current land mobile radios often have 5 watts of unit-to-unit power capability. So if you're on the scene of a major event and for whatever reason you either can't or don't want to reach the main base station capability, you can still communicate quite well. Unfortunately, the early offerings for broadband push-to-talk don't give you that capability. And, the capability of high power user equipment in the future, having more power, the ability to talk from one unit to another. Most people on this breakfast call this morning understand, a lot of this capability, but the public doesn't understand that when they talk on their smartphone, they're talking to a cell site, which is repeating it. And, if you can't reach that cell site, you have a brick in your hand. That smartphone doesn't work. And my concern is that we can't rely on that lack of unit-to-unit capability when the network either isn't in range or available as mission critical. And that will happen. It's being developed as we speak. The 3GPP standards have already addressed it. Manufacturers are starting to look at how to address that. But these are the kinds of things that, to me, are the future of our communications. In addition to that, the introduction of what we call 5G, it gets confusing to people who are not familiar with radio communications like many of us. The difference between 5G and 5 gigahertz, sometimes they get confusing. And 5 gigahertz is an area of spectrum way up in the spectrum arena, while 5G is what we call fifth generation kind of communications, which is being developed now by the major carriers for the public, and which is now being developed, will be developed for public safety communications. It will be an added feature in the FirstNet system. It'll be different than the LTE 700 bands communications that we currently are using for FirstNet. But what will happen is, with the enhancement and the addition of 5G integrated into that network, it will give us faster data speeds. It'll give us an additional reliability. The problem is that, that is all, in a sense, being developed. And it isn't yet really readily available in devices. It's not totally been developed for public safety. And we have to watch that and monitor it as it's developed, and make sure that it meets the requirements that we need. So those are the things I'm looking at for the future, Carol, and I hope that gives people an idea of what my vision is. There are things that you and I can't even imagine today that we haven't even thought about, that even in the next year we'll hear about for the first time, and will, tickle our fancy, so to speak. It's one of those things where, again, I go back and tell you that my life and my career in this wireless world has been the most exciting thing you could imagine. I mean, watching all these developments and seeing the future and what's happening. I mean, even though I'm mostly retired, I still continue to try to be active and contemporary because it's such an exciting thing for me. So I don't intend to abandon that at the moment. So Carol, that's kind of my presentation. We're missing John. I don't know where he is, but hopefully that's helpful to the group for this breakfast meeting.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your thoughts on the future of wireless communications, and it is exciting industry. My experience with wireless was not like yours, but it started similar in the same way. I built my first radio when I was a young man in my teenage years. However, I had some bad experience with it. My mother owned a beauty parlor, or beauty shop, they call it at the time, and it was just a separate building attached to the house. Unfortunately, I blew all the fuses out in those days, and she had a couple of ladies under those hair dryers, the big domes that they pulled down over their head, and that got me in trouble a little bit. I went from there to being a Navy cryptologist and intercepting Morse code, and then to see this then from there to I was involved when the tubes in radios went away and it was transitioning to solid state, and then to actually building crystals, which is not really a business anymore. So to see all of this technology, and it moves fast and it changes fast, and I'm like you, in 20 years from now, I have no idea what it's going to be like. It's fun to look at that, and it's exciting to hear your vision, and to recently have listened to the vision of Ted Rappaport and others in this industry, and where we're going to be in a few years. It's really exciting. And in the arena of public safety, it's more than just exciting. It's safety and security for all of us, and providing the communications to those law enforcement people that put their lives on the line every day, and giving them the best that they can have. And after I've never been in law enforcement, after watching what some of those men and women wear all the time, they certainly need something that's smaller and lighter weight, it would appear. But I think that we're getting there for them on that, and I think it's the next few years is going to be very exciting. in wireless communications, specifically in the public safety area of communications. Chief, do you see any need or issue as we move into this new arena with public safety communications and providing training to the users of the equipment or providing training to the technical people that maintain it? Do you have any thoughts on that, Chief? I don't mean to put you on the spot. You're muted, Chief.
I'm muted, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, and I went off script, but I was interested in knowing your thoughts on the new technology and the training for the users and for the technical people.
Well, training is critical. I don't mean to move off script, but to be very honest with you, if you look at what's happening in the world around us today and the cries for defunding the police, this is exactly the problem that we face. Training has never been properly or adequately funded for any public safety agencies, police, fire, EMS. And in the communications world, that is very true. So in other words, if you don't know the capabilities or the how to use your communications devices to the fullest extent, there basically is a waste of the device. And you know, so we're talking about training. To me, we need more money for public safety, police, fire, and EMS to train people in capabilities of radio communications. We need it for training them on how to deal with racial issues and the things that we're looking at today. It goes the whole gamut. Some of you have maybe seen some of the recent articles in some of the cases where, in some cases, the dispatchers, 911 dispatchers, did not give adequate information to responding police officers, which resulted in the death of a suspect. One of the most noted ones is the child in a park where the police officer wasn't told that the caller said the child may have a toy gun, not a real gun, and then there was the resulting tragic death. The point is that more training in every aspect of public safety communications is critical. We can't have less money, less funding. So I really believe we've never adequately trained, in my view, in all of my years, never had the money to adequately train in communications or other aspects of public safety.
Yeah, I see that in my daily work every day. It's a critical situation, and hopefully that can be resolved sometime in the very near future. I appreciate your thoughts on it. I didn't mean to go off script, but I actually went off script a long time ago, so that's okay. It's more fun to just to have a discussion with you, Chief, and listen to what all of your experience and your vision of tomorrow. That's so important, and I hope that so many of those that are following behind you are listening to you and your vision and your experiences in the past. And I want to thank you for your service. I'm really appreciative of that, Chief. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to thank all of our attendees for joining us today for the Radio Club Virtual IWCE Breakfast. Hopefully we'll be back next year face-to-face where we can do networking the way I like to do networking face-to-face. I hope that all of you will visit the RCA virtual booth. The Radio Club of America currently has a very attractive offer for becoming a member. You can become a member paid in full for 3 years for only $150. Just ask any RCA member or any of our people that are RCA members that are working the virtual booth. It is an experience to be a member of the Radio Club of America. It is an experience both personally and professionally that I promise you, you will not regret becoming a member. And again, I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope that you have a good IWCE conference. We appreciate IWCE and being a valued partner for the Radio Club of America. I appreciate so much having Harlan join us today. Chief, I thank you again. This was a learning experience for me, and I appreciate it. I hope that everyone has a good day. Have a good day and take care. Be safe. Thank you.